Okay, please do not confuse principles with elements. As we discussed with this last bit, elements of art are the basic components of the visual art. It's what we break everything down into with our eyes, okay? Principles, okay, is the way the artist organizes or uses these elements. So how does the person or artist choose to use these and organize them to make them visually work in a design, okay? So principles are the ways the artist is going to use the elements. One of the ways that they can use the elements is to balance them. And there's 3 ways that we can balance something. Balance is when you look at something and it feels like it's the visual distribution of elements is equal, right? It doesn't feel like one side of the picture is busier than the other, or one side of the picture is just heavier. And the other one is empty, right? Because that would be uncomfortable to look at. You want something that's fairly visually balanced, okay? So the first way to balance something is to balance a design symmetrically. So here, what you could have done is, I'm just going to create a little box, like a little area for my drawing to go into, okay? We can divide this in half visually, and we can have a design that is exactly the same on both sides. You can come up with anything on this side as your design, okay? So I'm just going to do something completely random. Maybe I'll do a dark diamond on this side. And then I want that same okay, I'm going to make some interesting lines. Around it, and you can make it simple, you can make it as complicated as you want. Okay, but here what you're basically doing is you're creating something with basically a mirror image of it, a design where both sides are just about, if not completely, the same. Okay. Asymmetrical balance is in your picture when the 2 sides feel like they have the same amount of elements happening on both sides, but it's not exactly the same. It just feels weighted the same. Okay. So for instance, here I could have a big dark diamond shape. Okay, I can fill the space here with something, and then on the other side it feels balanced, but it's a little bit different. Okay, it's not exactly mirror image. It's a little bit different, but when you look at it, it feels visually balanced because there's the same amount of elements being used on both sides. There's an equal distribution of elements being used. Okay, and radial is basically like symmetrical where it's mirror image, but it stems from a center point and moves around that center point. So with this one, I'm just going to split my space up into like 6 sections. Okay, and whatever design I make up in one section, it's going to move around in a mirror image fashion stemming from the center. Okay, so say I do a small circle, a big circle, 3 lines, and then a dark box. Okay, how do I make this into a radial design? It has to move right around. So I have to just again, you could have done whatever you wanted for your radial design, but you came up with some kind of a doodle and then you repeated it moving around a center point. If you guys ever drive by a really old cathedral or church, You'll notice that they have those big round windows in the front with colored stained glass. That's like a classic example of radial design or radial balance being used in architecture. Because the stained glass design repeats itself all the way around. Okay, so whatever you did a picture, a bunch of swirly lines, shapes, whatever it is that you came up with. The idea radial, it repeats itself, but it all kind of stems from that center point. Okay, so we have radial balance, we have asymmetrical, where the two sides feel visually weighted, but there's different things happening on both sides, and then symmetrical balance, where both sides are exactly the same, or a mirror image of each other.